Welcome to Packets and Bolts, podcast about technology, life, philosophy, and everything in between. It is Saturday, January 14th, 2023. This is your host, Muskrat, along with my co-host, Mongoose.
Oh, I'm afraid the deflector shield will be quite operational when your friends arrive.
Fail!
Also joining me is Del the Stench. Well, join us as we begin Season 5. Season 5, discussing gun control. 2019 was the last time we discussed gun violence. I believe it was called Shoot First, Ask Not. As always, we will look at some headlines, read listener emails,
and have a Royale with cheese.
We might. And we'll also be drinking a special brew that I brought. Email the show, packetsandbolts@gmail.com, packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Join us on Discord. Follow us on Mastodon. That's packetsandbolts@ioc.exchange.
OnlyFans.
Yes, OnlyFans. Still starting up. Yes.
Or TikTok dance channel.
Yeah, that reminds me. So it is 2023, and it's the new year. And I had some time off around, Fourth of July, New Year's Eve, and all that stuff. And I was on the OnlyFans channel and looking for that nickel that someone was offering me. But he wanted me to juggle, and I just don't know how to juggle, so I just didn't get the nickel.
We need more feet pictures.
we need our foot model to come back.
Excuse me.
All right.
Who did that?
Oh, yeah. We'll have to get that Patreon started, too. All right. We're going to monetize this sucker. Those beers aren't going to buy themselves.
It's true.
All right. But isn't there a website like that's what we should do? Buy Me a Coffee, I think. Buymeacoffee.com or something that you
Buymeabeer.com.
Yeah, we should do
this.
it.
GoFundMe.
It's kind of like that. It's like Patreon, but they get coffees, which are money, I think. I don't know. So you act like you're buying someone a coffee, but it's giving them money. Anyways. All right. So how was your New Year's Eve?
Well, I don't remember most of it.
It was all right. I think I was there.
Nice.
Now, I do recall that I ended up watching some videos of Jeff Beck playing some concerts, and he just died.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He passed away from meningitis a couple days ago.
Is that what it was?
Meningitis, yeah.
Wow.
Uh-oh.
Someone else just, who was the second person that went?
A lot of people go this time of year.
Marie Presley.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Mrs. Elvis. Is that really the term? Wait, what?
In my mind,
Daughter?
very famous for her roles in the Naked Gun movies.
Elvis is still around.
Elvis is alive, and I guess his daughter isn't anymore. How old was she?
Wait, well, that could be a ploy. Are they both smashing jelly donuts somewhere in Vegas, or
How old was she?
60s?
Huh. 59? Huh.
Our producer says 59.
Yes, we have a producer today, kind of. All right. Well, anyways, so when did the Mrs. Presley die?
Nobody knows.
You mentioned it, 2 days ago?
No. This was this daughter, I guess. I was totally confused.
Her mother.
When did her mother die?
Right, yeah. That was probably like...
She didn't even know her mother.
Nobody knows her. It's like the Outfield, that old band from the 80s. Nobody knows about the Outfield.
What are we talking about?
Absent mothers. It's a problem in the rock and roll society.
So...
Courtney Love?
Priscilla Presley. When did she die?
Oh, yeah.
That was like 10, 20 years ago, right? Or something. I don't remember.
Maybe she's still alive, or maybe she's in the trunk of the car that Elon Musk sent out to space.
She is alive? Wait a minute. The daughter went first? This doesn't make sense. All right.
Sounds like a conspiracy to me.
Well, this is why once I saw the name Presley, I just assumed it was the wife. Oh,
let's launch an investigation.
Yeah, Packets and Bolts on site at what's that place? Where does Elvis have his thing?
Graceland.
There we go. Graceland.
Nickelback
but
at,
first,
at the bank.
First Jeff Beck.
Tool at Home Depot.
We have to investigate this Jeff Beck thing.
Third Eye Blind live at LensCrafter.
All right. Well, anyways, let's get some headlines here.
Headlines.
All right. So should we do the hospital evacuated one first, or the hero armed with fruit cocktail?
Can we combine them
let's
into a hilarious way?
Let's go with VT.co. Hospital evacuated after man 88 turns up with World War I bomb lodged in rectum.
Yes.
So this kind of goes in line with I think every year we've been talking about people with large things up their ass.
It's a staple of our podcast.
Kind of comes up a lot. No pun intended.
Wasn't the eggplant in like some Chinese person or something a
Didn't
couple
they do
years
that
ago?
on a Jackass show too?
And then he thought it would help with constipation, but it caused it, I guess.
I thought he
And then-
shoved the eggplant up his dick.
No, I don't think that's possible, but maybe.
Anything's possible in China.
So this guy, I don't know what his story is, but apparently he thought, the advantage of a World War I or any artillery shell is it's really hard. And so if you're shoving things in your ass, I guess the harder would be easier, except isn't a shell kind of big?
Can I backpedal on this and just ask the obvious question? Was this device in his ass since World War I, or was it a World War I device that somehow recently became enlarged in his ass?
It was recent, and luckily it was not armed. It was not actually, but they were worried because they saw it in an X-ray.
Okay.
And so they saw a shell in the guy.
So how long has this been enlarged, may I ask?
Well, let's see. Measuring 8 inches long and more than 2 inches wide. So not that biggest of artillery shells. Was removed from the
those bigger
man via
ones.
surgery. That saw it come out through his abdomen. So that's really, wow.
Oh, he really shoved it up there, huh?
He must.
Wow! I mean, did he sit on a mortar launcher?
Well,
Like, how does he get that far up there? Like, what's the story behind
I
this
didn't
guy?
want to ask specifically that, but yeah, I guess I was kind of driving at that. Let's dive into that.
Was
it
he
is-
pleasuring himself with an old? I mean, this thing is pretty rusty too.
Or was it an accident? I mean, like sometimes you fall off of like something and you land on
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
like a
sure.
World War
It could
II
have-
museum, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Was it like, oh, my friends are dead of exploded munitions and
Or this looks like a chair. And it
Well-
turns out it's not.
It is unconfirmed how the World War I explosive came to find itself in the man's rectum, but the New York Post stated that it's believed the man was using it for sexual pleasure. That's a conclusion
Here we go.
that you might derive, but we don't know. We don't know. Anyways, so speaking after the event, one doctor declared an apple, a mango, or even a can of shaving foam. We are used to finding unusual objects inserted where they shouldn't be, but a shell, never.
Yeah, but none of those objects look like each other. An apple.
That is weird, but at least it's natural.
Wait, let's review that. An apple,
Yeah.
a shaving cream can,
A mango. Yeah.
a mango.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Those seem pretty distinct objects to me. With
They've
distinct
seen
shapes.
it all. They've seen it all except the shell, but now they have seen the shell.
is this a problem that's particular to our society today? I mean, if you think back to the Civil War, how many Civil War
were shoving
veterans
things
were
in.
shoving unexploded ordnance up their rectums?
Well, I heard that in the Battle of Seattle, that was very frequent.
Like, disclaimer, there was no Battle of Seattle. in the
Oh,
Civil
sorry, I
War.
might even think of something else.
The elderly gentleman is now in good health and is expected to make full recovery after the ordeal, and presumably will take precautions so that this doesn't happen again. What kind of precaution do you take not to have a artillery shell go up your ass?
Well, I think once you've been in that scenario, you probably are a little more privy to those precautions. So
All right.
I can't speak to it, but I'll trust those in the biz to run their own
All
game.
right.
Yeah, I'm interested. We need a part 2 to this.
Yeah, we do. We need to do investigative journalism here, more than the Priscilla Presley or Graceland thing. All right, so BaltimoreSun.com, hero armed only with fruit cocktail. Sometimes I am so damn proud to be an American that I have to lean over and hold my stomach. So this is actually a situation that relates to a different story. So I believe is this the guy that threw a fruit cocktail at someone that was assaulting them with a sword? I might be getting my stories confused here. Hold on a second.
But that's awesome.
Well, that's I was trying to contrast two different stories, but I might have picked the wrong one here.
Oh, who cares? Let's combine them and make it news.
So this was 2022. There was a guy with a sword. Okay, so this is WSAW.com. Sword-wielding suspect arrested during SWAT standoff in California. Okay, so I read the wrong story first. So in California, a guy came around with a sword, and they all got freaked out. And, of course, the SWAT team came, and, I'm guessing a hilarity ensued. But the point is, it took a SWAT team to take a guy with a sword. All right? Okay.
But there is a play-by-play in this attack.
Yes. You want to go for it?
In the vivid words of shopper Korean Pesky, he came right through the Keebler chocolate chip cookies display, just plowed through, and there were Keebler cookies spread all over. Bingo! Give me your money, the hooded man shouted at the cashier. He banged his sword on the checkout counter, causing the tip to bend.
This is the Baltimore Sun?
Or is it a Dr. Seuss book?
Which side are
now,
you on?
shopper Paul Josiger said, I just said to myself, what can I do to help? So I threatened him with fruit cocktail.
Okay.
This sounds like something out of Mad Magazine.
So this is the older incident.
So in his own words, I yelled at him to put the knife down and get the hell out of the store, or I would throw the can at him. Well, then he got the money and ran, so I threw that can of fruit cocktail at him, but missed. Here, Corinne Pesky picks up the story. As soon as he was gone, one woman said, don't anybody touch anything, because he didn't have gloves on, and there will be fingerprints all over the place. There were a lot of quick thinkers in there.
That was derailing.
All right, so that was Wisconsin, and that was the older story that I was contrasting with the modern one with the SWAT team. So in the story that Mongoose just read, residents that were not armed picked up canned goods and threw it at the guy, and the guy retreated. Meanwhile, in California, they had to get a SWAT team of people armed. This kind of links into our
armed
gun
with fruit
control.
cocktail.
They were armed with
fruit guns.
They were armed with AR-15s. No, the WSAW.com, different site. This guy was arrested by a team of SWAT people with high-powered rifles. All right. So what I'm trying to do here is show that I don't know what year this was in. This was a while ago. I think this is from Wausau, isn't it? So in Wausau,
Of course.
the people, the hardy people of Wisconsin, were able to take him out with fruit cocktail. In California, they called a bunch of armed police, and I'm just wondering: is this a situation of the times? Because this article is from a while ago, the one in Wausau. Did people become more scared in these intervening years, or are people in Wisconsin just more? I would say we're better, but. Why do you have to take on one person with a sword with a team of SWAT people? And SWAT people don't always show up to people that have a handgun, but a sword gets a SWAT team? Isn't this a little weird?
It might be because they're not trained for it.
No one knows how to handle the sword.
But a guy with the fruit cocktail from Wisconsin can.
He took it on.
I mean, speaking of the Civil War, this goes back to the Iron Brigade.
That is
Muskrat.
right.
I mean, you look at the Civil War and you look at like all of the Union troops in that war, and the Wisconsin soldiers were just head and shirt above the rest.
Yeah, Wisconsin. I think it was some of Indiana and Michigan, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the Iron Brigade.
So I think it is funny that the person that gave the interview talked about the guy coming through the Keebler cookies. So they really remembered that. That must have been really vivid in their mind. Probably tragic.
But I haven't had a Keebler cookie in a while.
Yeah, same
Now
here.
that I think about it.
Same here. Did the elves shut down for COVID?
I don't know. After the show, we should go get to the
I
grocery
think
store and get some Keebler cookies.
COVID killed them.
COVID killed the elves. They're just
Nothing can keep
the
it.
tree is empty. There's just
Nothing
dead
will
elves
kill
everywhere.
Nothing can kill the Keebler elves.
Some would say the vaccine killed them.
No, they're still there.
I don't think elves need vaccination.
I think we should do a live video show where we go to the grocery store, we get some Keebler cookies, and we eat them and just kind of talk about them. And we kidnap a Keebler elf.
if we can find the tree. All right.
I know where the tree is.
So, all right. Let's see here. I'm not sure why this is on here, but There's another story of the Pentagon losing money, but is this recent or is this from a couple of years ago? Well, we all know that the Pentagon keeps losing people's money, so
What? No, they don't.
they can't keep track of anything.
That's what they do.
That's weird.
Okay, I think this was related to this story, which is thehill.com. Defense Department fails another audit, but makes progress. The department has failed its 5th ever audit, unable to account for more than half of its assets. But the effort is being viewed as a teachable moment. How many places you can just like, I don't know how much half my money came from last year, but it's a teachable moment.
It sounds like every organization I've ever worked.
After 1,600 auditors combed through DOD's $3.5 trillion in assets and $3.7 trillion in liabilities, assets plus liabilities equals the accounting equation, everyone. Anyways,
Golden toilets.
yes. Officials found that the department couldn't account for about 61% of its assets.
I would say normally that would mean people get fired, but
So he later
Asset tags.
yes.
he later added, "We failed to get an A." I love how they just get, we failed to get an A, guys. So what do you think you'd grade yourself if you couldn't figure out?
Sounds like you guys are going to summer school.
I would not say we flunked, he says. The process is important for us to do, and it's making us get better. It's not making us get better as fast as we want, he said. This year's outcome was not unexpected. Federal law since the early 90s requires mandatory audits for all government agencies, and since fiscal year 2013, all but the DOD have been able to satisfy that requirement. Interesting. Didn't the last time that they announced they couldn't account for so many trillion,
9/11 happened like 2 days later. Yeah, weird.
Interesting. I don't know what that was. So, all right. Well, anyways, so the DOD isn't going to, they're basically saying fuck off. Okay.
Well, we'll have something else bigger to look at probably in a couple days then.
So here's one for Dubstench, Slate.com. A gigantic aquarium exploded in Berlin. Some Germans are worried it's a metaphor. When is a crack in the glass not just a crack in the glass? Well, it actually was plexiglass, I think. But this is the largest indoor aquarium ever, apparently. And one of the issues, I heard an engineer talking about it, the temperature differences between the upper and bottom is probably what caused this to happen. Luckily, no one was there at the time, but the thing blew up before the place opened.
Yikes.
And all that water went everywhere. And I believe it was a saltwater tank, so it's even, more damaging.
Yeah, that's why I don't really like acrylic tanks. That and because to clean them, I like to use glass and you can hit it with a razor blade and get
Scrape
it really
it.
clean. But yeah, acrylic, that'll scuff it all up. But man, if it was a big enough tank with I don't know how many thousands of gallons, I don't know what they say, but
It's pretty huge. Let's see.
I mean,
55 feet high,
yeah,
38 wide.
this was a complete
that's
catastrophe.
It's a
1,000
cylinder.
gallons.
It's a cylinder, so do the
So all the fish
volume
died.
equation.
All the fish died.
Not all.
yeah.
There were some in the bottom floor that lived, supposedly.
That's
but not
true.
many. Not
So
many.
it says that many local newspapers led with photos of a giant dead fish.
Yes. Many fish
Oh yeah,
perished.
and whoever's house that was in was trashed.
It was a business. It was a bunch of shit
Wow.
got destroyed.
Yeah, if my saltwater tanks blew up in my apartment, I think I just move.
Yeah. Yeah, bad. All right. I don't know who thought about building that gigantic of a thing, but sure.
Well, it's a cool idea, but
I guess.
make sure it don't blow up.
Oh, and then the break caused a bunch of tropical fish to die from the freezing chilly weather.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
cold outside.
Not good.
Yes.
No, that's gonna hurt the team.
All right. So this was technically
Gonna hurt the school.
This was oh jeez.
Fish.
Yes. School's out for winter. All right, MSN.com. This one is technically from December, but it was after our last show. Elon Musk's Twitter lays off engineers days before Christmas. So they just keep plowing through engineers, reducing, and yet not able to actually do the kind of things that they want to do. So more lawsuits probably if they're not giving them the severance that they need. So just more about Elon's failures. I always like to bring that up. We need to do a whole show on his failures, but I've seen that recently there's been a lot of YouTube videos talking about how much of an idiot he is. So I'm satisfied.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that. I thought you were a big Musk advocate.
Yeah, we'll follow it up with a show about how Elon Musk is going to save humanity.
Sure. All right. Here's some scary shit. CivilDeadline.com. First artificial womb facility to produce 30,000 lab-grown babies per year unveiled.
Yes.
The concept of an artificial womb facility that can incubate 30,000 lab-grown babies a year has been unveiled by a German, of course it's German, molecular biologist.
Nice.
On the surface, the news may seem like a step forward in terms of scientific advancement, but upon closer inspection, it is clear that the concept is nothing short of an ethical disaster waiting to happen. I mean, this looks pretty Matrix, you know.
Yeah.
You ever see the movie Prometheus?
I hope that's not what it actually looks like. This is crazy.
So once they grow the babies, do they just leave them hooked up and then they like siphon power off them like the
I
Matrix?
hope they're in like a big glass tube that like somehow later in the movie a hero comes in and looks and is like, what the hell? And then eventually saves the day, shatters them, or they come out and attack everybody.
Babies with lasers.
There's a lot of good. Yeah, all right. I like the laser idea. Let's go with
Get the
that.
babies lasers.
Laser mouths.
All right.
I mean,
Or they yell and the bees come out of their mouths.
We could certainly be in a Matrix simulation right now, where somewhere we're in one of these pods, just like in the movie. We're hooked up,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a.
and as soon as we
Podcast.
die, they're gonna flush us down and replace us in the little pod.
I feel like that's a podcast episode worthy subject. We could get way into that.
Yeah, we should. It's a philosophy topic.
Or are we already?
Are we in the Matrix? Yeah. All right. TheIntercept.com. And I think this comes as no surprise to any of the cynical amongst us. Twitter aided the Pentagon in its covert online propaganda campaign. I think everyone knows that all social media is bending over to the intelligence agencies.
Except for MySpace.
Except for MySpace. Yes, they're the ones.
That's where I put my favorite songs.
Paragon of justice. So yeah, this came out. Not a really big news to me, but some people might see this as news. They were helping to, basically shape whatever the hell the Pentagon or the CIA or whoever the fuck wants them to do, right? Internal documents show Twitter whitelisted CENTCOM accounts that were then used to run its online influence campaign, quote unquote.
I think it's safe to say that everything on social media is now done to manipulate people to do something.
Exactly. The latest outrage, which I don't have an article on, but did you hear they're trying to get everyone afraid that the government's going to ban gas stoves now?
What?
Just because there was a study that talks about how it can cause asthma and stuff like that, and it should be well ventilated. And then
Good luck with that.
Of course, now everyone is saying they're going to come and ban you and confiscate your stoves and stuff. It's all about outrage, and it's about manipulating fears. What is it? FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That is what they sow.
So let's all grab our gas stoves. We'll go up to the streets with them. We'll light them up and show how they're safe in a big demonstration.
But that's outdoors.
Who cares?
Yeah.
You have those
No
indoors.
one's taking any stoves.
Everybody's dying.
Everyone's dying. Well, I'm sure it leads to some asthma, but so does all the other
I'm
chemicals.
going to weaponize my gas stove now.
But they're weaponizing people on both sides of the political aisle, right?
Yes,
They have people
yes.
outraged about everything that the Trumpists and the right wingers are doing. They have everybody like outraged about what the leftists and the Biden supporters are doing.
Yes.
And in reality, there is no side.
Just corporate America shoving
You
it
have
up their
two
ass
sides
every
of the
American.
proverbial coin that are just furthering their agenda.
So what's the replacement for the gas-powered stove? Is it like a solar-powered stove, or is it like a
No one's going to do
an
anything.
internet
but
subscription?
it would be
based?
electric or induction. Actually, I'm going to get an induction burner soon. I'm going to try one of those.
I'm going to go for we should start a company that's internet subscription-based, licensing-based stove.
Licensed
Everything licensing based is how you make your money.
cloud-based stove.
Right.
Buy our cloud stove product.
Yeah.
For your monthly subscription of $5, we'll cook your food for you and then mail it
$5
to
per
you.
burner. You will physically have 4 burners, but you need to subscribe to all four.
Yeah, we'll only
$5
cook things.
a month.
We'll only cook things on one burner unless you pay for the higher price. Then we can do multiple cookings. And if you want an oven,
Well, that one burner might not be enough.
I can see
you want
that.
an advanced burner? Do you want a mediocre
holy
burner?
shit!
I can see that.
Copyright Packets and Bolts 2023.
Patent pending.
The cloud stove.
Cloud Stove Solutions. Talk to us now.
All right. USAtoday.com. Fortnite FTC settlement claim results in $520 million fine. Here's how to get your refund. So basically, if you weren't aware of this, all these game companies are basically advertising directly to children. It's basically an online racket, and it's pretty much illegal, but they keep getting away with it. Well, this lawsuit actually got some money back. I don't know how much you're going to get individually. Let's see here. Probably matters how many people sign up.
$3.12.
Probably.
The $520 million to settle the case, including $245 million in customer refunds. So that means only half of that 520 is for the refund. So then there's like 250 or whatever left to give people that are filing a complaint. I don't know.
Pretty much not worth your while.
Banking. Let's see. So I'm trying to find out if there's a upper limit you can get. I don't see that. But if you think you were ripped off or your kids were ripped off by Fortnite, go to the FTC site.
If your kids rip you off on video games.
Yeah, I know many people where their kids took their credit card, sometimes like stole it, or sometimes like asked for permission to buy something, but then it was like multiple $400 charges.
You have your card hooked up to your account.
That's what happened to me. I had my debit card hooked up to my PlayStation account, and my ex's kid bought $100 worth of Fortnite currency, cash, or whatever, and that was not refundable because you cannot pick up in-game currency as a refund. That really hurt the team.
Yep, don't do that. Did you get money back?
No.
They wouldn't. You just couldn't call them and say, "What the fuck? This is like bullshit."
Not for in-game cash, no.
What the hell?
PlayStation will refund you if you bought a game.
Did you tell your credit card it was a fraudulent charge and have it shut down?
I did not, because it technically wasn't.
I would have done that.
I don't know. If I ever want to start playing Fortnite one day, I got some good skins I guess I could use. I don't know.
All right. Well, here at Packets and Bolts, we don't endorse any in-game purchases, and fuck those games that do that. But here's the deal. I forgot to talk about this. Can you buy things in Super Mario Kart?
The mobile version.
No, but what's interesting about Fortnite is it's a free download. So that's how they get you. Oh, I can play this awesome game for free. Next thing you know.
Yeah, but you got the skins, you got the weapons. It adds up, man.
So I forgot to talk about this, I think, at the last episode of the season 4, so last month, that I got the Steam Deck, which you are aware of, but maybe not the listeners. And I not only heavily endorse it, but I think it's the future of independent gaming development because it is open. Everything can be discovered about it.
What games have you played that you're into that you would endorse?
Well, Mass Effect Legendary Edition I got specifically to test a Windows game on a Linux platform, and it runs fine. And it's not even Steam verified. It's actually, it says it's unsupported, like it should not work, and it works fine. And I'm using a PS5. I bought 2 PS5 controllers, and I've just been using that for the control device. And so it is opening my eyes to a whole new world.
So that's a Windows program running on a Linux. So is there a wrapper?
Well, what happens is they've been working on Proton for a while. So it's a combination of Wine and other stuff. It translates DirectX calls to Vulkan and other things. So it works. It's sometimes like Elden Ring, it runs better. So Elden Ring had some bugs in the beginning. It had some bugs in the beginning, and it was underperforming. And Linux was able to fix it faster than Windows because they just fixed their translation layer. And so they actually fixed the performance problems before the Windows patch came out. It's amazing.
So it's a big console though. Like that's
yeah. But I've got it on a dock, and it's on my TV now, and it's amazing. It's amazeballs.
So it's like a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, except better. And if Nintendo was better, it was smart, they would create a Nintendo dock that would be their next gen console, and it would plug all their cartridges into this, and you'd play it through the Steam hardware.
Ooh,
There we go.
I'm feeling like the next or one of the next podcast episodes should be consoles.
Yeah.
I get
CG.
on that.
Get CG on there. He's also a WoW gamer. He plays WoW.
Oh, talk to him.
Yeah. So, we keep saying that we should start doing live on Discord, but we haven't yet. But one of these days, we might actually
Twitch.
start to do that. Could do Twitch, too. We could just have a speaker here, and it would just hear everyone at the same time. They listen to us drink and all that crap. But anyways, all right.
The Trailer Park Boys did it.
Well, Matt Stein, who's been on the show before, that's how he was doing his podcast. They would just all he would tell everyone when they were recording, and then they would have live interaction. But anyways, all right. So this is a serious note. Yahoo.com. Be careful. Walmart is under fire after report alleged high levels of arsenic and lead in its spices. And you always have to worry about cheap spices.
Wait, what?
This is a very, very real thing. So they have had their mega retailer Great Value store brand has over 150 herb spices and seasoned mixes in their inventory, and many commonly used spices, garlic powder, paprika, are being sold for $1, making it a great value as promised. But cost aside, are these spices that you want to have on hand? After a report alleged that they were high levels of arsenic, lead, and cadmium in some Walmart spices, the retailer is facing a new lawsuit. Dun, dun, dun. The big one for lead.
Good morning.
The big one for lead is turmeric or whatever.
Turmeric.
Lead, because it can kind of look, kind of yellow. Like that's common to end up in.
Well, wait, isn't half that stuff from Walmart just like rebranded?
Well, Great Value is
or lower quantity, like so it's a lower quantity than what you buy from the store. That's why it's cheaper.
This one's their house brand, Great Value.
They're cutting turmeric with lead.
Yeah, it's the oldest game in the book.
They're cutting their spices.
It's the oldest game in the book.
I would like to find a way to demonstrate that because that seems high. How does that get past the health administration? We're gonna throw a bunch of lead in
because
this.
there's no regulations
it's
anymore.
Simple. Dub Snatch, it's simple. Just buy a bunch of Great Value spices
just
and
keep eating it.
We'll see if you go insane after eating lots of turmeric.
What I'd like to propose is we buy a bunch of spices and on the show we burn them with like
lead detection. You can get a powder. You can get a droplet.
We can figure this out.
Yeah, let's do it.
pH test, all that kind of stuff. We should do it. We should do our own scientific test.
Mm-hmm. Get a Geiger counter too and see if it's radioactive.
Yeah, here we go.
Let's do it. It's the oldest game in the book. If a Coke dealer does it, a corporation does it.
So Walmart's stepping on their turmeric, stomping it down.
So you're cutting turmeric with lead. What do you cut garlic powder with?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Arsenic.
Yeah,
arsenic. That's arsenic. Straight up. Just straight up arsenic.
What about paprika?
I feel like arsenic would be
like saltpeter.
Saltpeter
or
saltpeter.
I
think
feel
that might be harder to.
In something would be more expensive. First of all, to obtain a powdered form of
well. Wait, they might not be cutting it with arsenic. Arsenic might be just grown in contaminated land, and they're just like, yeah, this is a fucking arsenic field, but whatever. Grow that garlic, bring it in.
Well, maybe that's I don't know. Maybe that might be just okay anyway.
Not if it's high levels.
Well, how do you detect it? And like,
well, they have to run tests. They should be doing samples.
Do you think they're cutting the parsley with weed?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because when I was a kid, people used to cut the weed with parsley. Like it should come full circle. I'm still
oregano.
pissed.
when I was a kid, I used to cut the weed with oregano and grass.
Still pissed about getting ripped off.
I feel like we could do our own tests here to validate this stuff.
At least for lead, we probably could. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
probably.
we get a metal detector.
Yeah, we'll get. Well, no, it's not that high a concentration, but we could chemically test it.
Yeah, but you could. I mean, it's okay to eat a little.
Let's buy a mass spectrometer. Let's get our OnlyFans to chip in enough that we can get a mass spectrometer.
We need more feet.
Yes, more feet. All right.
Or selling farts in bags.
All right. I have a theory. This is HartmanReport.com, how global warming makes it freezing cold. Now, I'm not going to go through all this. I'm just going to read a little bit. But last Friday, with this recent bomb cyclone, 53.7% of the nation was covered in snow, more than any time since record-keeping began, as the oil industry knowingly lies to us and rakes in profit. Now, here's the thing. It goes through this whole thing about why the global warming can cause this. And we know that, for instance, the last ice age was theoretically possibly caused by the Atlantic pump stopping because it was diluted with enough fresh water that the cycle stopped, and then the Glaciers came. But I'm not sure if that's what he's asserting here. But the point is, I have a theory, but I don't think I'm going to share it yet because it's a danger. I think I just had a mass realization about the conspiracy, the great conspiracy on global warming.
You can't fence a mass realization.
I have a new theory. But I won't reveal it now.
Don't reveal it because then you'll disappear.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well,
yeah.
you'll reveal during the next episode.
Well, we've got so many listening devices around us.
That's true. They're there for our protection.
Weed.
I have my smart cigarettes here that are listening to us right now, recording this conversation.
I mean, when global warming happens, it's like when the heat rises in your house to the roof. So it's going to get warmer in some places, and then the bottom of the earth is going to get colder.
But isn't the bottom of the earth generating that?
I mean,
heat
the
to start
bottom
with?
being sea level and the high being
Are you talking about the core of the earth? Are you talking about the mantle layer? What are you talking about?
It's hyperdimensional physics, guys.
No, it's not. There's no hyperdimension anything.
All right. So,
Boom.
interestingengineering.com. Macedon rejects more than 5 investment offers to stay a nonprofit.
Oh, I forgot about that website for a second.
Yeah, Mongoose, get on it.
Yeah, so they're getting forgotten about because they're not taking investment offers.
Who's getting forgotten about?
Well, Dubstanch just said that he forgot about that
Well,
website.
that's
That's what happens
Well,
when
yeah,
you
because
don't take your investment offers.
No, it's just guys. I posted stupid stuff.
You need more followers.
Yeah, I only have one follower.
All right. Well, anyways. So,
Because everybody's on Twitter.
no.
I'm not on Twitter.
Even in the screenshot of this story, they're showing Twitter with 20 badges on an iPhone and 0 of them on
That's
Mastodon.
because the man is making this.
As soon as I was done harassing Chef Gordon Ramsay, I was done with Twitter. That was years ago.
Gordon Ramsay is not on Mastodon.
He was
Right,
talking about
that's why I'm not on it because, well, I am on it, but I can't harass him from there. So,
that we know of. He might have joined. A lot of people have.
well, if you find out his account, let me know,
All
and
right.
I will lean into him.
All
If
right.
you're on Mastodon, log in and make Dubstench your friend. He needs it.
Yeah, and don't forget to find packets and bolts at ioc.exchange. That is where we live
Oh,
on
that's right.
the
There's that
Macedon.
exchange thing. I don't remember how any of that stuff works.
It's like an email address. You know, you can host yourself all over the place. I was going to start the packets and bolts Macedon instance, but I just don't feel like I can commit to that yet. But eventually.
But
it'll come.
eventually, we're going to have a Packets and Bolts fax number where you can
Yeah,
fax
yeah, yeah.
in
We
your
do need
ideas
that.
and
We
your
do need
menus and
Let's get that hooked up with Etherfax. We'll have a fax. We'll have a fax. All right.
just the fax.
Yes.
Man.
So if you don't like emailing the show, you can fax.
It's secure documents.
All right.
I'll fax you back, I promise.
This is a real quick. I don't even want to get into this. This is just crazy talk. RexResearch.com. W waves. W coming from wood. They have found. This is not even like a news story. When was this discovered? I just stumbled upon this. We all know that people can detect plants talking to each other, but they are in. Well, we know that they communicate, right? But there's different theories about it. This guy actually found waves being transmitted, but they're not like electromagnetic. I don't even know. It's insane.
Is this going to go back to like the
This is like 1989.
quantum entanglement kind of thing, where like
Maybe.
it's a particle and it can be a wave depending on whether you're looking at it.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
not.
the particle wave duality. This is Ed Wagner. Orvin Ed Wagner discovered W waves. So just keep this in mind. This is something out there. So we need to get this guy on the show. That's what we need to do. All right. 2023, by the way.
Well, so you stumble on W waves, right? But we've known for years that there's other, this is just another communication method amongst the forest trees.
Yes.
It's an alternative to faxing, in case the fax lines are down.
Yes.
So, I mean, they were talking, and just a quick Google search shows me that they've been talking about this extensively since 2018. But mycorrhizal, MYCORRHIZAL networks. So these are fungal networks that the trees use to communicate against each other. And I know when I first heard about it, it was interesting because the trees can detect defoliating, like for instance, what's the moth, like the gypsy moth, or other diseases, forest diseases, and they can use the fungal networks to signal to other trees at the edge of the forest that are dealing and battling these types of infestations, and they can cause those trees to defoliate proactively to stop the spread of these types of things.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, and I knew about that, and I've known about other things, but the W waves got me. So I don't know. I got to do more research on this.
Yeah, so what you're saying is these trees can communicate directly versus
some sort of wave.
So they have wireless now.
Yes. I guess.
So they had their Ethernet networks via the fungi, and now they have wireless
Yeah,
communications.
supposedly, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's
It all
bizarre.
goes back to networking, folks.
Yeah. I need to get this guy on. I got to talk to this guy. All right. WSAW.com. Sheriff says burglars called 911 to get help moving stuff. And this is from Florida. 2 people in Florida were arrested after one of them made a 911 call to get help with moving their belongings from a home they were burglarizing. Like, how did they think this was going to go down? Deputies responded to a home Saturday after a 911 call was made, but nobody spoke. The Polk County Sheriff's Office said, at the home, the deputies concluded that nobody lived there, but they found a male suspect and his girlfriend inside the home after entering it through an unlocked door. They've been searching for the male suspect after identifying him from security video as a burglar at a Dollar General store, where several items were stolen earlier in the day. The sheriff's office said in a statement, the city is about 35 miles away from South Orlando. So while talking to deputies, the female suspect told them that she had called 911 for the purpose of having law enforcement help them move their belongings from the house they were burglarizing. They also wanted to get a ride to the airport so they could spend the weekend in New York. I don't even know what's going on here. Is this legit?
Yeah, we're just stealing luggage.
Is this?
Yeah, it is. It was the Hamburglar.
I forgot about that guy for a second.
Are they just dumb or I don't understand.
Well, the Hamburglar didn't talk.
She was so smart.
Are you sure?
What?
I think he had a voice.
Did he have did he actually say any coherent words, or did he just make
check
sounds?
out right now,
I think that was a sign of his low intelligence. In this.
Maybe he was smart because he didn't talk.
He fits
didn't
the
call the
profile.
cops to get
Yeah, that's true. He
rights.
pled the fifth.
All right, whatever.
They don't sell hamburgers at Dollar General, though, or do they?
Not that I'm aware of, but it wouldn't surprise me if they start. JustTheNews.com. Dubious but unresolved newly declassified CIA memo takes on claim agency employed JFK assassin. When it wasn't JFK assassin, the guy Oswald didn't do it, but the point is the CIA had him under their employ, and this is now coming back to bite them in the ass because the CIA claimed they never used him as an asset.
Well, they're refuting the assertion that he was under their employ. They're trying to stick to their guns.
Sure. They're full of shit.
The lone shooter.
Bullshit.
The magic bullet, man.
Yeah, right. Anyone that believes that is just on some serious crack.
Well, according to the X-Men movies, Magneto was the one who killed JFK.
Sure, yeah. Trying to deflect the bullet, right?
That's right.
Yep. All right.
Because JFK was a mutant.
All right.
Even that is a better explanation than the official one.
That is actually, yes. Okay, so this is awesome, but I don't know if it's going to come to pass. Bootsell.com, Butzel. The FTC is proposing a rule, and now it's going through comment period, to ban non-compete clauses. So that would be great, but even if it happens, they're probably going to get sued. And, the Republicans are going to probably sue them, and then it's probably going to be, tossed out in the Supreme
Why did you
Court.
ban that?
Ban non-compete. Basically, that even Target workers are put under non-compete clauses. This is ridiculous. And it keeps people from going to other employers.
Well,
it's total horseshit.
Right. I mean, I used to work at a major, pizza place, and, I was told that if I ever left, I couldn't work at one of the major
Yeah, that's
competitors
bullshit.
for, a period of 3 months prior.
Yeah, that's bullshit. They shouldn't do that. And I think that's a legit rule.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, if you are sharing company secrets.
But that's already illegal.
Yes.
That's already illegal.
Yeah,
that's not changing that.
espionage.
That's not changing that.
Which
they
I think is the coolest sounding crime.
Preventing
ever.
you from working for a year is just time tax. Time tax. Didn't they claim that on the 3-day waiting period for buying a gun? They called it a time tax. So here's a time tax.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest. The biggest concern with that is trade secrets. But like you said, I mean that's still illegal.
Yeah, non-disclosure agreements will still be obviously valid. And you could tell someone secrets all day long without working for them. So that's.
When I quit my last job and I gave my notice, they asked me where I was going, and I didn't want to. Of course, you don't want to divulge all the details where you're going until you actually start that job. But I was explaining that it was like a business process outsourcer, but I made the comment that we were working on behalf of clients. Well, this company has clients, of course, just like many companies have clients, right? Well, my boss at the time took that as, you're consulting. And I had a non-compete that I can't join another consulting firm. I said, I see what you're doing. Sorry, it's not that type of company.
Then what'd they say?
Well, take a hike.
He's just like, okay. But, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, like, so you were going to try and, like, thwart me, and now what? You'd force me to stay and,
then
hold
be
me slave?
unhappy? Yeah, that's pretty much, yeah. I know someone that knows someone, so a secondhand, and they basically quit their job and then had this job lined up, and the day after the year expired, so they had to not work for a year. They got hired. It's just total bullshit. All right. Anyways, we'll try to get some real quick ones here. There is the WSAW.com green comet to appear in the sky for first time in 50,000 years. And it should be most visible February 1st and 2nd. So if the skies are clear, look for the green comet.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm. And virus eating, this is biz.crast.net. Virus eating organism has been discovered. And what is a virovore? So this is supposedly the first time we've found an organism that only eats viruses for its nutrition.
Cool.
And it's like a very small bacteria, I think. So that's cool.
I feel like that's a premise for an upcoming movie.
Yeah, the virovore.
It's all about like microorganisms.
Well, I'm going to tune into that one.
Voiced by Ryan Reynolds, Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Rock.
Okay, so the last, maybe CIA. Okay, so this one goes with the predictions from Mongoose, but he's disputing that she's good. So GreekReporter.com. So I was watching this random video on Baba Vanga, who I think was from Bulgaria. She was like a blind prophet. And apparently she had some catastrophic predictions for 2023. So real quick, the 2023 predictions. Solar storm.
Well, before we talk about this, why don't we talk about her 2022 predictions?
I don't think she had many. It was 20.
What? Oh, that's convenient.
Every year she has some, and I looked at her 2022 predictions, and I thought, man, Mongoose the Seer had way more correct predictions. I mean, we went through that on the last podcast.
We need a little bit compare and contrast on his year predictions.
I mean,
here.
Mongoose is speaking in the third person about myself, I guess. Mongoose,
yeah, that's weird. You need to quit doing
had
that right now.
some pretty accurate predictions, as we found out. And Baba Yaga said that aliens were going to attack last year.
I don't think so.
Now she's saying it again. She says it every year that the aliens are going to attack.
Over break, we'll look this up. We'll look this up over break. But first of all, who says the aliens haven't attacked? Just because it's not a massive invasion. But here's the 2023 bioweapon tests. Forecasts: a major nation would allegedly conduct bioweapons testing. To be clear, none of these predictions have been verified.
They did that with COVID.
Well, they probably do it already, and we can't prove it.
Well, that probably is true.
That's probably true. Example.
Also, these predictions apparently have not been verified, as in not knowing if they actually came from her. A lot of her later predictions, they did not have. They've just been like told by other people, so we're not sure she actually said these ones. Oh. Like Stalin's death was predicted by her directly. Everyone documented it, so I don't know if all of these are. Change in Earth's orbit. The orbit of Earth is said to be changing in 2023. according to another popular prophecy, and a global nuclear disaster might be the cause of this enormous shift.
Well, how do we prove or disprove that from us here at Packets
I guess we'll wait until 2024. Solar storm, according to Baba, I thought it was Vanga, but you're saying Yanga, I don't know. In 2023, we will experience a solar storm, a solar storm with destructive consequences equivalent to those of billions of nuclear bombs. This may lead to power outages and disruptions in communication. May, of course it would.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of language, this loose language isn't even involved in a gym membership. You can't say this stuff for
here we go.
predictions.
Creation of lab babies.
Isn't it already happened? In the 80s?
Baba Vanga predicted the rise of lab children. Hey, that sounds like a band, the Lab Children. Anyways, this suggests that parents may have the option to change their child's physical characteristics, such as hair, eye color, before they're born, which they're starting to do, actually.
I thought they did that on that show on Practical Jokers.
It remains to be seen if any of her predictions will come true. Anyways, I don't know what this means, because if they don't know they came from her, then it's kind of nebulous. So I just thought it was interesting that there's a list of these in 2023. I think this is the year aliens are going to come out and say hello.
I think we need to start.
Whether anyone's going to say hi
let's
back.
Pitch down some predictions of 2023 and then review them in 2024 and see which ones came true.
And you'll see that Mongoose the Seer is far more advanced.
What I just saw was none of your stuff came true at all.
So he's got until 2025, I think, or something.
You gave yourself a wide window like that.
We went through this, guys.
Yeah,
I know we did, but
and I was largely proven justified.
Inaccurate.
No, accurate.
All right.
Everything except for one was accurate.
All right. KTVU.com. Surveillance video shows moment Tesla S brakes on Bay Bridge before 8-car pileup. Oh no, Musk. Your cars aren't doing what they said. Oh.
Well, I mean, any car could brake on a bridge.
No, but like it caused a pileup. It just started braking.
Well, that could happen.
But that wasn't the Tesla's automatic.
It was auto. It was on auto.
It was on auto, but the cars behind it weren't on auto.
Well, no, but if you brake on
all the cars on that roadway were using the Tesla driving algorithm, this would not have happened.
Have you seen the videos where they slam into a truck that's sitting still? They just plow right into it.
That's why you don't let a truck or a car drive you. You
right,
drive the car.
Exactly. But this is Elon Musk's promises. All right, we're coming up to the break, guys. And after the break, we're going to have some emails. We're going to have not a cocktail, a special beer that I was able to procure from the deserts of Wisconsin.
Find a store.
And yes, a store I had to walk many miles for. And then we will get into the discussion on gun control and what it means in the year 2023. We'll be right back.
Hank Hurlson here, proprietor of Baked Beans and Books and Furries Wear Boots. Did you ever wonder how many bites it would take to get to the bottom of a giant vat of baked beans? Well, I tried it once, but all the beans kept collapsing in on the hole I was making. I ate the whole vat. Stop on down to Baked Beans and Books to get yourself a heaping handful of baked beans and peruse the selection of books. While you're at it, stop at Furries Wear Boots. 11111 State Street, Madison, Wisconsin. Baked Beans and Books. When books just aren't enough.
And we're back. Packets and Volts, Saturday. Boom! January 14th, 2023. It's our 5th season.
So,
really?
Yeah. So, like, in terms of this podcast, people thought, hey, we just came back from an awesome commercial. Besides, when are we going to get a better commercial?
We gotta talk to Baked Beans and Books.
So we used to get like unique commercials all the time. Whatever. So like you're like,
Baked
holy
Beans and
cow!
Books.
These guys took a quick bathroom break. They're back already, but we just drank like 50 beers.
But we had.
And now look at that. There's more beer.
Actually, there is a beer. Remember to email the show packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Okay.
And if you don't live in the deserts of Wisconsin and you think you can drink us under the table, email.
Also find us on Mastodon.
We'll set it up.
Packets and Bolts at ioc.exchange. All right. This is a beer I've been tracking down for a long time. This is a
Yeah, what is this?
German's #1 black lager beer. It is Koststreicher, I don't know. Schwarzbier. All right. Now, we got some tall boys. This is not a cocktail today. This is what is this? A 1 pint, 0.9 fluid ounce, 500 milliliter.
I'm a little scared here.
A black lager, huh?
So this is a half a liter.
So the other day, Muskrat, you were saying that stouts are not true dark beers.
No, I didn't say that. I said Guinness is not truly it.
And then I brought up Murphy's Stout, which in my opinion is the best stout out there. And you said that's not a dark beer.
It's not as dark as some darks.
Well,
Right, I'm
you
opening.
need to show me darker stout beer then. So,
All right,
we
just
go.
open this.
yeah.
Oh no, it's dripping again. Is this a can design problem? This is the second
I
time.
got the drip thing going here.
Yeah.
I know it's sounding off, but
Look at
I feel like it is. I'm not getting on the mic. I'm really close to the mic.
I'm
I'm
getting
not,
some good head on that.
I'm gonna have to bail. The head's getting
That's
too
like
much.
perfect head. Those German women.
All right. Well, this is. I think the can is not designed for optimal pouring.
Is
but-
it? That's not Koststreicher.
Koststreicher?
Is it Koststreicher? That looks like, what's that letter?
I know, with the O's with the 2 dots.
No, it's Kost.
Koststreicher.
But is
Cross
that
the striker, yeah.
that looks like it could be a B? What is that letter?
It's a
Is that a K? Is that a B?
Z.
If you're German, you need to email
Right
us
here.
immediately.
It's a Z.
Koststreicher. It's a Schwarzbier.
Yeah, we have to.
Schwarzbier.
What is it? I don't know. We looked this up before because I was
think it's-
actually
I think
confused.
It comes with the Z sound.
Koststreicher.
Koststreicher.
If
Koststreicher.
you drink
Schwarzbier.
Das sind mein Koststreicher.
if you drink enough of it, you'll see the light and see what it really is.
All right. Well,
All right, the good thing
Everybody
is
ready?
there's a term for this, but I can't remember what it is. The head sticks to the glass. If you have a clean glass, it
The
sticks to the
legs.
glass. The legs?
in wine terms, that'd be the legs.
Okay, well, that's
They
okay.
call that in beer. I don't know.
I don't like wine with legs, but okay. Salute,
Salute.
or whatever the German thing is, but
Prost.
Yeah.
roast.
That ain't bad. I'm gonna give that guy 2.5 thumbs up.
2.5 out of how many thumbs?
Well, I only have 2
So an extra half of a thumb.
that I borrowed. I'll pay it back later.
Yes, the head is interesting.
It's not bad.
You took a lot of time to think about that response.
I don't know how good it is yet.
Well, this is probably the first. I don't think I've ever had a black lager. So I've
don't
had
usually like
stouts,
lagers, but this-
stouts and porters, but a black lager I don't think I've had.
This is way smoother than any lager I've had
It's
before.
extremely smooth, but
Yeah, it is. It's got that lager
It-
smooth.
I don't. There's not a lot of tones about anything in this.
Kind of has a.
I mean,
I think lagers
I
are
I don't know what I should compare this to, but I'm thinking of Warsteiner Dunkel, and that is far more robust than this. And that's a Dunkel, so it's not. It's apples and oranges, perhaps.
Well,
Well, whatever compared to whatever, I'll drink it. It's good.
It's a drinkable
I
beer.
like it.
It's good, yeah. So what's the alcohol content on this?
Oh, I would say
4.8.
4.8.
So it's not.
it kind of is reminiscent of Guinness Extra Stout, not the
It's
normal
not that
Guinness.
heavy.
no,
Guinness,
no.
No, Extra Stout.
I don't.
You're a Guinness hater, Muskrat.
No.
Guinness Extra Stout is more robust than this.
And I'm not a big stout fan. This is not a stout.
Extra Stout. It's just got that little that flavor. I'm not trying to think of what it is. I don't
The
know.
nuttiness.
Nutty. It's a bit nutty.
I'll tell you what, I've had many worse beers than this, and this is not bad. I was just
Listen to him.
expecting
He's
to
had
get.
more nuts in his mouth, and this isn't the best.
Hey, at least there's not nuts in. What was that?
Nuts in the fudge.
Nuts in the fudge. Anyway, I just expected to be blown away by this, and
Oh, baby.
I think it's a good. It's for a black lager, which I've never had before. I think it's good. My Samuel Smith Imperial Stout. I'm really liking that. And the Toddy Porter, or Toddy Porter.
Porters, I like porter. You know what? You know what else I really like are Scottish ales, and I don't find enough of those around.
Scottish ales are good if they're not too strong.
We had an Irish bar in the deserts over here that no longer exists.
The desert came and washed it away.
And they were just over time washed away. They used to have Murphy Stout, which again is my favorite stout. If you find that and you want to mail it to Packets and
On
Bolts
tap. They had it on tap.
Yeah, well, they had it on tap and they had the cans, but that was always my go-to, and then it disappeared. And I cannot find that beer anywhere to save my life. But
You can't find the cans?
no,
Oh.
Even if you go hang out behind a dumpster.
no, and I used to find them at. But anyway, yeah,
What are you saying?
I don't know.
He doesn't know what to think.
Did you forget what you were talking about?
He's trying to rate the beer.
So when I rate things, and this goes for IT work too, because we're an IT podcast, right? Like sometimes, we're always interjecting our IT lingo, but sometimes, this podcast is about life philosophy and everything in between, so it's not always about IT. But when I inject the beer into IT and we talk about ratings, you need to quantify.
What's the
You're right.
KPIs? What's the KPI?
You can't just say on a
No
scale
spies,
of 1 to
just
10
KPIs.
unless you understand what the 1 and the 10 mean, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big operational problem I have in IT. Is like everybody's like, hey, 1 to 10, what's the risk? Blah, blah, blah. But with this beer, how do I rate this? Like, what's the benchmark?
Well, I figure this beer has very low Java security vulnerabilities,
Right, yeah.
Yes.
so I don't feel like I'm going to get exploited by drinking it.
That's good.
What's the CVSS 3.1 score? What's the base score on this beer?
I can't disclose that.
Well, I'll tell you,
3.8.
it was a
8.3.
It was a high. It was an
It was a
8.
high. It was an
But
8.
the temporal score, the more I drink this, is reducing the score. And, do we have any environmental scores to play off of here?
Are you
Right?
saying there's a patch available that could negate the...
Mitigate it.
If we have compensating,
compensating
controls,
controls for this?
yes, that we can justify to auditors.
All right. Well, if you've got some compensating controls for your beer, email the show packetsandbolts@gmail.com, packetsandbolts@gmail.com.
It's not bad.
All right. Well, let's get the emails real quick. We got 3 for you. Hot dog with an exclamation point
Oh,
writes.
come on.
That's their sign off.
This person again.
What did Hot Dog write us before?
Yes.
Oh.
I remember everyone who emailed.
I need to start tracking cocktails and maybe emailers. So, anyways, can you discuss the difference between American hot dogs and other sausages around the world?
Yes.
Right now or another show?
Well,
The answer is yes.
The answer
the
is
question,
yes.
the question is, can we? And yes, we can.
All right.
Next question.
Doug, D-U-G, writes, let's party. Come to Chicago, man. All right.
Send us your address. Provide beers.
Let's do a
And
podcast.
other
The gun laws in Illinois
Uh-oh.
are too stringent now, so sorry.
And since
Doug.
Mongoose is always packing a bazooka,
Wait, hold on.
he
We
can't
don't need-
travel between state lines.
We don't need guns. We need him to provide us.
Well, in full disclosure, we are not residents of Illinois, so we cannot transport firearms, whatever the case, in Illinois. That's the biggest no.
Unless
That
you
doesn't
follow
mean
the
that
federal...
doesn't mean I have like 3 or 4 firearms buried in a dumpster on the other side of the border that I can come pick up when I drive over.
But if you travel with the federal transportation guidelines of it locked in a trunk with the ammo separate, and you follow those rules, you can transit Chicago and Illinois.
Let me just tell you, there's a cave off Lake Michigan in Illinois where I got firearms.
Jeez.
We'll pick them up.
You'll find Hoffa buried there too, but
No, not there.
But so there was a gun range that I used to frequent and I was a member at, and whenever I would bring up the subject of Illinois and reciprocation, which there is none with the state of Wisconsin, The instructors or the salesmen who are all packing heat, they all open carried at this gun shop. Don't want to fuck with them, but they would get fearful in their eyes and they would freak out.
About
like
what?
literally freaking out. And when you see a bunch of salespeople freaking out with guns on their hips, it's not a good feeling.
What were they freaking out about?
They would freak out and just get really worried about the whole prospect of somebody transporting guns in Illinois and they would say, don't do it, man.
Well, and I took my class. They told us the rules you had to follow, and you could stay overnight.
That's
as
a
long
more
as you were
pragmatic
traveling.
approach, yes.
Yeah.
Than freaking out like they did with me. But in their words, they will throw the book at you.
Chicago and New York are the tough ones, I was told. But
and go figure, they have more crime there.
Texas has more crime, and they got guns all over the place. That's a good point. All right. Chops writes, why haven't you given a Ukraine update recently?
Ukraine is gone. Forget about it. Next topic.
We were going to give a big Ukraine update today.
Yeah, we have a guest that wants
was
to
it
talk
today,
about it.
or
Actually.
was it another? We were devoted episode.
We have a guest that wants to talk about Ukraine.
He's Ukrainian.
All right, if you're from Ukraine, email the show packetsandbolts@gmail.com using the Starlink or whatever that Elon Musk is trying to use over there. packetsandbolts@gmail.com.
Don't say that Elon Musk is not doing enough for Ukraine.
Elon Musk is being Musk. All right. What does that mean? Oh, by the way, I'm getting quite annoyed on Mastodon. Sometimes they like to refer to Elon with different pet names to rip on his sorry ass. And one of the terms is muskrats for supporters of Elon.
Ooh, yeah,
and I'm like, no, please do
fly.
not identify.
Do you know who you're talking to?
I said, do not lump me in with people that worship Elon Musk because I do not worship Elon Musk.
I feel like by you even mentioning that, you're just gonna invite. You
Well,
just open
you know,
the floodgate. You're gonna get more.
Luckily,
of that.
Mastodon's not as crazy as Twitter. So
yeah, it's
Unless
like
nobody's on
they should almost censor Mastodon, so you don't have
well,
to deal with that shit.
every instance is a you can filter your own people, right? Like I could shield myself.
Keywords, yeah.
I could shield myself, or the instance could censor you for being a dick.
How's that even?
Don't be a dick.
How's it different from like?
Well, no, it's you're going to the rules of the place you sign up for. That's
how's it
the
different than,
advantage.
like, say privacy settings on Facebook.
No, it's like that, except that in an instance, any instance can make their own rules. They moderate as they
So
want.
you have to make multiple rules for multiple instances if you're involved in multiple instances.
Yeah, so if you want to join
This
Mastodon,
sounds like a big pain in the ass.
It's like an email server. You're joining whatever the provider is.
yes, you join Mastodon and you forfeit your rights.
You're following their rules. And it's not as bad of a contract as Twitter makes you agree to. Like they'll give your data to,
Who reads that shit?
Vladimir Putin. Right, exactly.
The only thing I like Twitter for is
I give
harassing
you-
Chef Gordon Ramsay. And if you're out there, Chef Gordon Ramsay,
I give you
I
dollar.
need you to look at my canteen sub sandwich or my
your
bowl,
women.
the bowl of Captain Crunch I poured and rate it.
Putin's reading Mongoose's twats, whatever it is, all day long.
Twatters, twats all day.
There's a twatter on the ceiling.
Putin likes my twats.
All right. Okay, so join the Discord server.
I puted a twat on the ceiling.
Our
one day.
producer is like squirming over there. Like,
And my doctor was.
she's not liking this
My
conversation.
doctor gave me some medication for that.
Join the Mastodon or join our Discord server. You can find the invite link in the show notes. Mastodon packets and bolts at ioc.exchange and email the show packetsandbolts@gmail.com. Packetsandbolts@gmail.com.
Oh my.
Just do it.
All right.
Busted.
All right, so let's get on to this gun topic that we haven't talked about since 2019, I guess.
I don't have a gun.
Really?
I heard Coco Main did.
Isn't that crazy? This is year 5 of this podcast.
It is, yeah. And it all started because I bought a condenser mic for work.
We started with a condenser mic, and now we are international. We have thousands of subscribers.
Yeah, I remember sitting here at work with this guy and talking about it. And suddenly, how I got roped into it too, and
You can't escape now.
it's a downward spiral.
Upward.
It's a cyclone.
Yeah, that's
El
right.
Nino.
All right. Well, this became a
Gingivitis.
topic of today because Mongoose saw a story where some sheriffs decided to flout
Squirrel.
the laws, which is not uncommon. Sheriffs do that all the time. In fact, police all over the place decide when they want to enforce the law, like Uvalde, where a bunch of armed police officers cowered in a hallway while kids were massacred.
Well, I
in
mean,
this long, fine tradition of police not doing their job, a sheriff in Illinois is also doing the same thing.
So Muskrat, the thing is, and we got to back up when we get into this conversation here, but like we're not talking about the police.
Not necessarily, but a
No,
sheriff
we're
is
talking about the sheriff.
Yeah, a little bit different, but still the same.
And that's something I want to celebrate in this podcast. I really want to celebrate it, guys.
Celebrate those sheriffs.
I love the fact that sheriffs take an oath to the Constitution and have the ability to uphold it independent of the law. There's a little bit of
Constitution
independence
is the
there.
law.
And that's actually something that's been widely debated in sheriff circles. Like,
the
Are you
circle
involved?
jerk?
Are you in the
The
sheriff
sheriff
circle?
circle jerk?
No, but I looked online.
I wasn't involved. I wasn't aware of sheriff circles, but let's talk about sheriff
It's
circles.
NSFW in those sheriff circles when you go online
Not
looking
safe
for it.
for work,
But
right?
they
Sheriff circles, sheriff
debate.
circles, sheriff circles.
They debate. You know, like some state, and every state has different requirements for sheriffs in terms of the
Sheriff
oaths
circles?
they take. For instance, Tennessee, they have to take two oaths. One is an oath of the Constitution, and another one's
The
the
one's the
sheriff's
Tennessee
oath.
sheriff circle.
And then there's other states where the sheriffs just have to take a single oath, but the sheriffs all take an oath of the Constitution. 33 states have, basically created the office of sheriff at a county level directly through their Constitution. The rest of them, as far as I understand, 17 have done it through statute, so basically amended their Constitution to create the office of sheriff. But I remember when I went through gun safety years ago to get my concealed carry permit, and they talked about one of the last bastions of freedom.
You were rejected.
And understand that typically these gun safety programs are sponsored in part by the NRA, so the NRA's got their tentacles in it, right? But the NRA says, look, to protect our Second Amendment rights, like the sheriffs are the ones typically that have the office that are a last bastion of protection. So when you get a law like this, it's introduced, and there's questions about the constitutionality of the law. The sheriffs sometimes they step up. And this recent gun law, and we're going to focus on Illinois. This was just passed a couple weeks ago. Went into law immediately. The sheriffs, and I've heard varying reports about how many sheriffs have come out about this, but it's between, I think, 30 sheriffs, and I've heard upwards of 89 sheriffs from different counties. The 89 report was via a social media site by a patriotic right-wing group, so they're probably they might be inflating numbers. I don't know.
Sure.
So let's just suffice to say that between 30 and 89 counties in Illinois have sheriffs that are saying, look, we're not going to enforce this order. This order is HB 5471. It was called I think it is called the Protect Illinois Community Act. So it went into effect immediately on January 10th. There are several restrictions and over 100 types of guns that were banned.
All right.
There's different provisions of the bill that either ban certain guns or require existing owners to register them with the state police.
All right.
And it's that last comment that the sheriffs are saying, we're not going to go and seek people out to make sure that they got gun registered. And
Well, yeah, they're not being asked to.
That has a large.
So
large
the
part
onus
of
is on the
overhead.
person.
Right, but
yeah, and so, I mean, I'm not entirely clear on what they're not going to do, but they're saying that, look, we're not going to go and fret about people not registering their guns. And,
it sounds like they're gonna,
and
like
if they
you say,
find
catch them as they come about.
and if they find unregistered, if they find unregistered guns, they might not do anything either.
Yeah, you can always count on the police to not do things. Yeah.
Well, it's like if they decided that, the inside door handle of your car is red, that's illegal. They're not going to go and audit everybody and find all the red indoor car handles. But as they approach them and come
Well,
across them,
there's a lot of cops doing jaywalk policing in poor communities, so they got time for that.
that's true. But I get that. But that sounds like what that they're saying here is that they're going to catch them as they come. Not
Hopefully.
go and seek it.
So the ban over 100 firearms, everything from semi-automatic rifles, and that's a big complaint about this law is that they are banning certain types of semi-automatic firearms where there's really no functional difference between another similar semi-automatic rifle that is not banned in terms of the capacity, the type of ammunition. Obviously, the velocity, because the rifling and the type of ammunition used is what contributes to the
do
velocity.
We have the actual
and there's no
wording?
difference.
That's the big thing too. Like what is
There's
a big discrepancy as far as what they're going after. What exactly are they gunning after? Pun not intended.
So the list I saw, which was basically a summary, and I do have a copy of the act itself, but the list of the guns that were banned is pretty thorough, and it includes semi-automatic rifles. It includes semi-automatic shotguns. It includes semi-automatic handguns.
So there were 2 laws that went into effect in January, but the one that is an actual assault weapons ban is heading to the state legislature. So that has not yet been passed.
But the other thing is, are we talking about like straight
That's
out
a different one.
Okay.
semi-automatic weapons, or we talking about mods?
That's the thing. I
Are
got to
those-
know
are
what
those
they're.
included?
Well, so the mods were called out, and in the provisions of this bill or this statute, whatever you want to call it, basically they take great liberties in saying that any type of firearm that like contains any type of modifications within the firearms listed that applies to these firearms are also banned. So there's a lot of gray area, and traditionally when it comes to sheriffs, in these counties and people resisting these types of acts, because we've seen it in multiple states over the last several years where gun laws are enacted and the state police or the sheriff stand up and say they're not going to enforce it. It's typically because of gray areas, a lot of verbiage that isn't clear, and other things, right?
So that's why I think this is a whole like pissing match, and there's a big waste of time. Do you want certain guns and certain ammunition to be outlawed? They call it out. Call it specific models. Call it specific types. Call it specific
So is
ammunition.
this the protect?
Not this pissing match like, oh, is this okay or this isn't? Oh, this might be all right. I don't know. It's all a big pissing match and wastes a bunch of time and it wastes taxpayers' money.
So
I'm
this
not
is the
saying
protect-
I'm against or for a kind of gun reform, but call it out, be specific, and be done with it.
Yeah, so this is the HB 5471 Protect Illinois Community Act.
Okay, so this is the one that supposedly would go further, but I don't know if this one's actually been passed.
So, for instance, I'm going to read a subset of the list here, right? So, semi-automatic rifles that have the capacity to accept a detachable magazine, or that may be readily modified to accept a detachable magazine if.
That's okay, right there. That's
That's pretty much all semi-automatic rifles. But here's the
Not
provision:
all.
it says if.
Not all.
So those types of guns, if it meets one of these provisions, if it has a pistol grip or a thumbhole stock.
But almost all semi-automatic rifles could accept a.
No, like my hunting rifle, 30-06, you'd have to like tear the thing apart to put a magazine in there.
But is that okay?
Not if you modify it, but it's
But
not
is that called
easily
out by law?
modifiable.
Is
It's
that
not
called out
easily.
by law?
No, I had a 30-06,
Yeah.
and it had a detachable magazine. I mean, I think most guns qualify as having a detachable magazine. But the thing about this is it has provisions. So it's saying if, right? So pistol grip. It's basically talking about modifications where if you can insert another magazine, like you would see in like a Tommy gun, if you have bump stocks, protruding grips held by a non-trigger hand, which again you think about like Tommy guns.
Well, I've seen ads for where you can take
Grenade launchers are banned. What the fuck?
Well, you can take 2 ARs and mount them in like with this kit and turn them into a chain gun. Like
Yeah, right.
Just turn a crank and just fire them off like crazy.
Yeah,
so
just like
is that
bump
covered in
stocks.
it? That's got to be like clearly defined.
Illegal.
Yeah, mixed magazine that can accept 10 or more rounds.
Yeah, that's used to be what was banned until the early 2000s.
And I'm a creative guy, and I can figure out ways around most of the stuff that they define. So I'm sure there's other more devious people that can get any more creative than I am.
And then they go on to list, I mean, after all these modifications is when they get into the list of, so you got AK, AK-47, AK-47S, AKM, AKS, AR-15s are in there, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You got Beretta, types of semi-automatic shotguns. You got Thompson submachine guns, which, Uzis, I would expect those, realistically, other than gun collectors who's got a functional
you can print off a
purpose
fucking single shot handgun in a 3D printer. So,
but I mean, look at this. So Sig Sauer P556 pistol, badass handgun, but like that qualifies as being on this ban. And the thing is, most of these guns, if you're already an owner and you register with the state police, they say that you're fine. Okay.
So it's grandfathered.
You're grandfathered, but they're banning the sale and ownership if it's not registered, et cetera, et cetera.
But you brought the fact of gun shows.
Well,
That's
this probably
regulated.
closes this, right? Because gun shows, you don't have to get background checks.
Right.
Right.
I can show up with some weird ass weapon I invented and show up at a gun show and sell it, and nobody's going to care, and it's no big deal. It's perfectly legal, perfectly fine.
Now, what I said before, Illinois is historically bad, in terms of, when I say bad, stringent with their gun laws. And that's for a reason, right? It's because all the crime. Chicago for many years has had the highest homicide rate, and that's a lot of that crime is gun crime. So I think that's the justification for these more stringent gun laws. Historically, they've had very stringent gun laws. Now, what's interesting, too, is, all right, when this bill was introduced, the Protect Illinois Community Act, it was introduced, ultimately, without any of this verbiage whatsoever, with the sole purpose of amending the Illinois Insurance Code. There were insurance provisions within this bill. And when it got further up through the review process in, the legislature in Illinois, and I think this was done by their state senate, the bill verbiage completely changed. And that's when they added on all this other verbiage. So very interesting how it grew from an insurance bill and all of a sudden was basically recreated to be this firearms. And it's not just on this ban, right? So this bill also strengthens the process for obtaining a firearms restraining order. Now, they, for several years in the state of Illinois, had an existing firearms restraining order process. Family members, sisters, brothers, spouses, people within the same residential building, so if you ended up in an apartment building, can file a petition, and with probable cause, law enforcement can seize your firearms for a period of 6 months, was the old law. And it also included, which I think is dangerous, that law enforcement didn't need any petition by those parties. They could do it as well. So with probable cause, they can file a petition with the circuit court in Illinois and get approval for a firearms restraining order.
Well, does the definition of probable cause change in that scenario, or does that remain the same?
So the law does provide provisions as far as what do they have to do and what's the burden of proof. Okay. But the burden of proof is only defined as, is this person at risk of causing immediate or near future harm to themselves or another individual?
Right. But it has to go to the court. It has to go to the court, so that's fine.
It does have to go to the court. Now, with this bill, they've modified the firearms restraining order law. Now they can confiscate your guns for up to 1 year and obtain an extension beyond the 1 year to make it as much as 2 years.
So basically take them away forever.
Potentially. I mean right now it's upwards of 2 years, but basically red flag law, right? Like the cops can come, say there's something fishy going on here. This person presents a risk to themselves, and they can storm your place, take your guns.
Well, no, they
for
go to the
upwards
court.
of 2 years.
They have to go to the court.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It petitions the court. They said
it has to go to the circuit court to get approval.
Not necessarily. Well, let's say, someone calls the cops and says,
well, that's different. That's an actual thing that's happening right there. If they want to try to say you're a threat to yourself or others, they have to go to the court.
And that's where this is primarily going to get applied.
But they have to go to a court for that. They can't just willy-nilly just do it.
If they start throwing the danger of public and stuff, then they
There's been many examples of people attempting to use these red flag laws, and then the cops just let them go, and then they go and kill people. So I don't know.
And they could look at that as a perspective to change that too. And so,
yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to this stuff, right? That's why gun control is such a huge topic today. And I still maintain, my personal feeling is that people should have the right to own firearms, and we need to do more to secure the places at the most risk, for instance, schools. And we've talked about this back in 2019. That was a big thing that I talked about, and we talked about in that podcast, is while we're having this debate about gun control, why are we not doing more to secure our schools to prevent people that have ill intent from coming in and blowing everybody away?
Yeah,
Because
money.
nothing is being talked about that, and yes, it costs money.
Yeah,
But
that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Figure it out, state governments and municipal governments, how you fund metal detectors and personnel to do bag checks. Yes, there's the topic of privacy. The kids should have some element of privacy, but we've already seen big cities, even in Illinois and Chicago.
Where do you stop that?
They're required to have clear bags, school bags, so you can see what's in them.
Do we need metal detectors at Buffalo
Well,
Wild Wings?
did you see that? Did you hear about that 6-year-old that shot the teacher? And was it Texas or where was it?
Yeah, it was
Virginia.
Oh,
Virginia. So they actually heard that the kid might have a gun. So they searched the backpack but didn't find it. Like, again, this is just school people. So who knows how that happened. Then he went into his bag, grabbed the gun, and shot the teacher. She lived, luckily. 6 years old. 6 years old. So yeah, Newport, Virginia. Yeah, that just happened like a day or two ago, something like that. So yeah, no, it's a big problem, but you got to look at Australia, who had a very similar problem to America with gun violence and school shootings and everything. And what did they do? Very aggressive gun buybacks, where when America's tried to do it, the NRA has prevented them from destroying the guns. Don't ask me why. So basically, they were allowing the gun buybacks to happen. They didn't like it, but they let it happen. But then they said you couldn't destroy the gun. So basically, they wanted to recycle those guns.
but I think that has a lot to do with it speaks to the citizens' confidence and trust in their government.
Well, no, a gun buyback, people will sell their guns to the government.
Yeah, so it's voluntary.
But
Yeah.
but
Buy it
in America,
voluntary.
people are a little skeptical. They're like, well, the government's sketchy.
But no,
Or in
that-
Australia, they may be like, okay, that's a straight up offer. Like, we understand that.
Well, no, America, what I'm saying is, even when we do something like that, the NRA prevented the government from actually doing a buyback that got the guns totally out of circulation. They were basically recycled. We had to destroy the guns that are bought back. The people are doing it voluntarily. So that was number one thing they did, right? But then they started doing, not enough people were willing to give up their guns because if your gun was involved in a crime, you could be linked, right? So they started to do what's the term? Basically, they're not gonna look at what the gun was doing.
No questions asked
There's
kind of
no one knows who you are. You dump the gun. We don't give a shit. We're not going to use this to try to close cold cases, which you can argue might be a bad thing. But if you're trying to get guns off the street,
Simple. When you turn your gun in to be bought back, you file the serial number off.
Well, I think there's a lot of differences between Australian and American government, and the skepticism of the people. I mean,
But it was very
Americans
similar.
Americans are fundamentally skeptical of the government actions. Where I don't live in Australia, and if we have any Australian listeners, they want to comment on that.
yeah, email the show. packetsandbolts@gmail.com.
So one thing that's interesting to me about our nation and our unique position, and maybe it's not unique because there's other nations in the world where people are allowed to own firearms, right? I think in the Netherlands or maybe
Well, in
Amsterdam.
Switzerland, they all shoot and they drink while they shoot.
Yeah, so per capita, they're similar to the United States, but they don't have the same level of gun violence. And when we saw the Michael Moore movie, Bowling for Columbine, they talked about that. But everybody ignores that.
Yeah.
So what is this other influence that's causing people to shoot people in America but in other parts of the world? I digress.
We're insane.
But I found it interesting that I forget who it was, but it was a military thing, right? So it was a military meeting, and they asked the enemy, I think maybe it was a Russian at the end of the Cold War, and he said, like, well, if there was a World War III, like, what does it look like for Russia invading the United States? And the Russian commander said, it's not your military we fear.
It's World War II. That was during World War II, where Japan had formulated some plans to invade inland America, starting in California. But they figured by the time they got to the Mississippi River, there'd be all these hillbillies and everybody hiding in the woods with shotguns and all kinds of stuff, and they would lose.
And I've heard that war games from the China now perspective, or maybe Japan at that time, is the consensus is they could make it as far as the Rockies, and the natural terrain of the United States would be enough to turn the tide and like stop the invasion. But I believe this particular story comes from Russia, where the Russian commander was like, "It's not your military we fear, it's the every single American hiding behind a bush with a gun."
I worked with a guy at a previous job who was in the military. He was in the Army, and we had a discussion about martial law. And he said if the government tried to take over like a city like Chicago, the Army would get wiped out because of all the gangs and everybody who had guns hiding in the alleys, like taking pot shots at them from buildings, all this stuff. They have no advantage. They'd be done. No questions asked.
Yeah,
and they know it.
And gangs are interesting because like they don't give a fuck, right? They don't care about like generally speaking the law. They probably
no
don't
rules of
care.
engagement.
Like they have their own like local politics they're dealing with. They probably don't care about like
Basically, you're on my block. I got rocks to sell.
federal
I'm gonna shoot you.
politics or the politics with like foreign countries and all that. Like they're out, you know, getting
Protect their block.
protection money from their block, protecting their hood, their territory. And you know, this is just some white
There's no
mongoose
rules of
guy
engagement.
saying this,
You can
right?
hide,
But like,
hide around the alley, fucking take pot shots at everybody. Who
if they're
cares?
if they're protecting their local area, like they're going to protect it against anybody who comes in there and tries to, you know, some foreign force comes in
So
or
they
the
already
government,
have
they're
a
going to
land
fucking start
advantage.
shooting people.
They have a land advantage. They know the area. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't care if you got tanks or whatever. People come up with all kinds of explosives.
Imagine being an invasion force and like going into, you know, probably New York City, like, you know, the rough parts of that, like
L.A.,
right away.
Chicago.
Well,
New
yeah,
York,
but like,
Falls are the
you know,
same.
they're gonna have to paratroop into Chicago. Like, they'll never get to Chicago because they'll be overrun by the gangs and the fucking hillbillies and the Appalachia.
You
before
laugh.
they
It's
even get
true.
there.
It's true. It's like a military invading military force would have a very hard time unless they just fire a nuke in there and
But
blew the
let's
whole place up.
celebrate that, man. Nobody's invading our shit. So
Well, but yeah, the only thing an invading military force would have would be to throw a nuke in there and turn it into a parking lot.
Well, I mean,
Like, that's
it depends what they're trying to do, right? So if they're trying to take over our country, I mean, that's, you know, America's a hard place to invade for many reasons.
and
but-
side note, they could detonate a several
EMP or
megaton nuclear bomb above ground detonation, right? They could
knock out the power and everything's
Yeah, well,
toast.
we got bigger problems to deal with. Than
yeah,
that.
they would knock out the power grid because of the EMP blast, and they could kill the populace without destroying the majority
Possibly.
of critical
Possibly.
building infrastructure.
It sounds like you thought a lot about this, and I'm a little freaked out right now.
Well, and I promise you, I'm not in with the military, but they're doing these types of simulations all the
I've heard
time.
promises before, and they've been broken.
Not the mongoose prophecies. And I
Okay.
look at the bright side, folks. Mongoose did
The
not
MGP.
have a prophecy for 2023 that we're getting invaded.
I will pledge my allegiance to the MGP.
All right.
Mongoose prophecies.
So, like, my question as far as this Illinois gun law, getting back on the topic, is this unconstitutional what they're doing?
Well, they've already done it before federally.
Right, but
And
does
we've
that
banned
but does
machine
that
guns.
mean
We've banned machine guns.
isn't this a violation of the 14th Amendment?
No. 14th? Wait, why? What's the 14th?
The Second Amendment, right?
Well, hold on. What's he saying here?
So the Second and the 14th Amendment both have provisions that are important to the gun control debate, right? And the 14th Amendment says that you cannot infringe upon somebody's liberty and confiscate their guns.
What's the exact word?
So
on that?
so look
Well,
up.
I need
Go
that
ahead and
in case the Kenny England comes over and try to kick my ass. I'm gonna kick Kenny England's ass.
So the 14th Amendment here, but okay. So these laws aren't confiscating guns, right? They're just outlawing certain things.
there are certain guns within this bill that are banned and won't be grandfathered.
It's in a bill, but
Well,
not
I'd
in
have
the
to
amendment.
see that
As
part.
far as I understand, it's 50 caliber rifles and magazines for 50 cal rifles and a couple other similar types of weapons.
So there's the amendments of the Constitution that are set in stone, but then there's these, other amendments to those that we have to look at.
I'm not seeing anything about there's due process, but I mean that's
So, for instance, back in 2022, New York State tried to pass a concealed carry law that would make people prove their need to defend themselves in order to justify carrying a firearm.
Oh, that
And the U.S. Supreme Court struck down that
yeah,
law
but that's the
based
Supreme
on
Court,
the violation of the 14th Amendment.
which was a
Well, it was
dumb,
it wasn't like approved like after the fact or approved
No.
like they made it approved before the fact or
to
something.
get
stupid
your
like that.
carry license. You just had to show that you were, in danger. So that's the
So they cited
Activist court.
They cited the 14th Amendment.
Yeah,
in
that's
their
the
ruling.
activist court.
It's a 6-3 decision.
Sure. That's an activist court right there. But yeah.
And Clarence Thomas
Yes.
he was the man.
Oh yeah, Clarence the Thomas here, Thomas the Tank Engine. You know he can. You're
Fired.
Yeah. That was a total bullshit reading, but sure, okay. They can cite any amendment they want. They can cite my,
I thought there was something weird to that was kind
my
of like a
ass
weird loophole
paper if they want.
They threw themselves into.
According to Muskrat's toilet paper, I think that this is unconstitutional.
So here's the sheriff response. One of the sheriffs talking about this Illinois Act when he says he's not going to enforce registration. He says, the right to keep and bear arms for defense of life, liberty, and property is regarded as an inalienable right. I, among others, believe that this bill, HB 5471, it says, is a clear violation of the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Therefore, neither myself nor my office will be checking to ensure that lawful gun owners register their weapons with the state, nor will we be arresting or housing law-abiding individuals that have been solely arrested with noncompliance of this act.
All right, Second Amendment here for our listeners. Well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yes.
The well-regulated militia, which of course is always ignored by all the guns people. Now, I own guns, and as long as we'll be operating in Wild Wild West rules, I will continue to own guns.
What do you think they meant by well-regulated militia, though?
So what they should be doing is making all of these gun laws tied to being a member of a militia, and states can run their own militias. They have them.
Our militias typically kind of squashed on and they thought it's crazy.
I mean, well,
they have a very negative connotation.
Sometimes, but the point is, each state can have their own militia. And that is what these should be sticking to. But what's happened is because of the NRA and all this other stuff is they've made it like some sort of thing where your gun is your penis and it's attached to you since birth. Now, again, I am fine with guns. I have guns. I have an AR-15 specifically because I think someday it'll get banned and it'll be grandfathered and worth more than I bought it for. So it's an investment.
But you won't be able to sell it.
But, well, maybe, right. But don't forget, in the old law, I'm not saying that this is how the new law will go. People were able to, I guess, because there were always like pre-banned guns that you could get your hands on, supposedly. I don't know. I wasn't even old enough back then to deal with it until, well, I guess eventually, but it ended in 2003 or something. Anyways, people talked about pre-banned guns and there was a trade for them. I don't know. Maybe those were illegal. I wasn't part of that. But that's why I bought it. But an AR-15 is actually it's not that fun of a gun to shoot, personally, I don't think. 30-06 is more fun. But when I bought it, I told a guy I was working with who's a Marine, and he actually said, I thought it was interesting, he said this to me, because you would think a Marine would be all about get as many guns as you can, it's great, it's awesome. He said, why are you getting that? Those are specifically designed to kill people. I'm like, well, yeah, I get that. I'm not one of those idiots that think, I'm going to go hunt a deer with an AR-15. It's the dumbest thing in the world. And I also don't think it's a home protection gun. It is a gun that if there was a war, that would be more of a gun you should have than, something else.
Well, and that's kind of my philosophy, right? So practical applications of a gun that I think law-abiding citizens can get behind and support, right? So home defense. An AR-15 is not a home defense gun.
Yeah, it's one of the dumbest ones.
That's not,
home defense.
They say within 7 feet, right? Or excuse me, 7 yards. Is where you want to draw or beyond. Because if an intruder has a knife, they can close that 7 yards before you can make
unless
an accurate
you're really
shot.
good.
So, and you don't want a rifle in those circumstances, right? But whose home is really modeled to where you can adequately defend your home with a rifle? You want a shotgun. Okay.
Shotgun or a variety of guns.
But shotguns are great, you put the shot in it, you're blowing holes in the intruder, right?
And it's a spray.
Of course, in all fairness, to our listeners, this is home defense. This is protecting the lives of yourself and your family, defending your property. Mm-hmm. But no, I don't think an AR-15 is something you're going to defend your home with. However, if the United States was invaded someday, or if all shit went to fucking hell, or even, and we've seen, in fact, the other day I watched a video where obviously a Republican congressman was being questioned by another peer in Congress saying that, well, why do you think these gun laws, are bullshit, and why should we protect gun laws? He's like, well, to protect against tyranny. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, he got questioned on that. So you're saying that if
Well,
the
he's
U.S.
part of the
military came to your house, you would shoot at the U.S. military. And he's like, look, like we were bestowed this inalienable right by the Constitution that if the government tries to fucking usurp my personal liberties, like I have the right to bond with my,
I'm sure he's bonding with his gun every night.
I
But
feel like
but he's part of the government. That's what's funny. He is the tyrannical government. But in addition to that, the Second Amendment is not an inalienable right. The inalienable rights talked about are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. These are other rights.
But it bear arms, like so. I don't carry guns or anything at my house, but I
walk around with it naked all the time.
I have bows and I have several, like plenty of arrows with very, very sharp tips.
Yeah.
And I live in an upper apartment, so I definitely have an advantage. And that
The high
ammunition-
ground. The
Right.
high ground.
So
So after they take our guns, they're coming for your bow.
if they can get it,
So I'm also a believer in all manner of weaponry to be available. So I have ranged weapons, I have melee weapons, all within hand reach.
all right. But I'm saying like, so I'm not under the gun laws, right? But I can have like a crap ton of arrows. Like actually, I'm gonna next week I'm picking up a batch more arrows that are cut for my draw from the local shop already. I'll have
Crossbows aimed at the door.
well, not crossbows, but plenty of arrows. Like if I, it came down to it, I have an upper advantage. I have pretty much a crow's nest. I could
Each a crow's nest. Each one of my entrances has whenever I go out of town, has a ballista that is aimed right at it.
I don't
Be
think
careful
that's
with that.
legal.
No, it isn't. Actually, booby traps are not legal. We're not
you can't do
endorsing
that.
that.
We do not condone
And I
that.
do not
think
have a
it's
ballista.
Well, that's
So getting back to the sheriffs on this law, right?
Yes.
This particular law that we're talking about with Illinois, this is not the first circumstance where sheriffs have refused to comply with gun laws. In 2013, for instance, Colorado sheriffs did the same thing. They believed that the law that was passed at that time, and I don't have the specific bill number, but they believed it was both unconstitutional and too vague, that law enforcement would be put at a disadvantage because they couldn't easily tell the difference between, for instance, certain stocks that were banned versus ones that were legal.
wait. I'll kick it right at that Civil War stuff you're so keen on. Didn't they have something there like right after the Civil War where there was kind of some discussion about what kind of weapons could be used for what, and that turned into a whole thing for a while.
The Civil War was a lawless time.
There was a lot of terrorists.
I mean,
Southern
Lincoln-
terrorists.
Oh, right, but they try to throw in some.
Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. It was all fucking crazy.
But wasn't there like at one point some sort of like a you can't use this, but you can use this for that, and
Well, I mean, after the South, lost, right, and surrender, and then they started talking about Reconstruction, which completely failed.
Because Lincoln was killed. I mean, we don't know what he would have done.
And Andrew Johnson, all indications are is that he wanted to comply, but they undermined him, impeached him, because other people who were very salty at the South for this wanted to punish them. So, I mean, that's where ultimately the long and the short Reconstruction failed. And so during that period where Reconstruction failed and the South was really persecuted, and maybe rightfully so, it depends on who you are or like what your viewpoints are, like differing opinions, but that's where a lot of those things came, right? So however you feel about that, we all end up where we're at today.
Yeah, and how are we going to fix our damn broken-ass country?
Well, so like with these sheriffs, like more recently in 2022 in Oregon. So Oregon, a very liberal state, right? Sheriffs refused to support a law known as Measure 114. That law was approved by 50.7% of voters, and then the next day the sheriffs were like, this is bullshit. And what's interesting is that the state media, many media organizations in the state, I should say, all joined together in characterizing the sheriff boycott as pulling from an extremist playbook or calling the sheriffs extremists. But the sheriffs were saying, look, like, not only does your bill unconstitutional in terms of your enforcement of like and how this affects people's right to bear arms, but that specific bill also had provisions to defund the police, of course. So
Well, then he's going to
there might have been some other motives for the sheriffs to.
Little powder there.
Now, I know that sheriff's organizations are always debating this in their own circles. You know, the sheriff's circle jerk, as you refer to it. And
the circle jerk of justice. They all have mustaches.
There are forums out there where they're constantly debating on, look, the sheriff's oath is something you do to uphold the Constitution, but it doesn't bestow you the ability to superhuman powers, some people say, to go and disobey the law. So there's a lot of gray area in terms of what sheriffs are able to do. They take an oath to uphold the Constitution. And we've seen time and time again where sheriffs will stand up and they will oppose these laws and refuse to enforce them, which a lot of people believe is their right. And I think it's great that you have a publicly elected office who has that last bastion ability to...
Right. That stood down as people were prosecuted for marijuana possession. But the point is that the police still will have to enforce it because they are not under the sheriff's department.
So, the police are just under the toe and the heel of the government. So they're going to...
Kinda.
I mean, let's not all shit on the sheriffs, right?
Because I'm shitting on all
it's the government.
Figures.
It's the government that wants to stomp us out, and the sheriffs are going to protect us.
Right? Yeah, well, they're the sheriff shitting on the shitty chair.
They're the arm. The sheriffs are part of the arm of the. They're confiscating. What's it called? When they can just seize your civil asset forfeiture. They're taking shit all the time, man. So no, the sheriffs are not a bastion of freedom. They're a bunch of dicks that are paid by the NRA.
So I'm sure, Muskrat, at some point you're going to say, well, all these sheriffs are paid by the NRA.
Yeah, just
and they're all Republican. Well,
maybe I don't know. It doesn't matter.
For instance, I
don't know about the political.
In regards to this Illinois law, Sheriff Ron Hain, who is the sheriff of Kane County, Illinois, he just won his second term in the recent 2022 midterm elections to be sheriff of Kane County. Mm-hmm. And he says, I am a constitutional office. I do take an oath to uphold the Constitution. There are questions about the constitutionality of it, he said about this law. And so, yes, it is actually my job to do my best to research that and ensure that I am, having an equal balance of justice here. So Ron Hain is a Democrat.
Yeah, what about it?
So they may run affiliated with the Democratic Party, but these sheriffs take it very seriously.
Oh yeah, so serious
to uphold the Constitution.
So I'm apolitical. So
by the way, J.B. Pritzker, the governor, said this is political grandstanding of what the sheriffs are doing, despite the fact that there are Democratic sheriffs that are standing up.
Yeah, but they're all douchebags. So I remember a certain muskrat or a mongoose that was thrown against a wall by an authority figure back in the day. But the point is,
they didn't like our protest songs.
The point is that
from my understanding, it was very.
It should not have gotten physical. It was all words with a guitar. But I found out,
they didn't arrest me. They dragged me out, and I yelled Attica.
There's actually an experiment that we could do. If you walk around and just walk around, no one's gonna do anything. You walk around with a guitar, and for some reason, police show up. It's really weird.
You walk around with a gun, police show up too.
No, not most of the time. Actually, it's kind of weird.
Do you think more cops will show up to a guitar or a gun?
Guitar, acoustic guitar. I don't know about electric. We never did that.
Electric, acoustic, and gun. Let's see what happens.
Okay, so we already know people walk around with AR-15s for some odd reason all the time. But if you go, are we doing this in Wisconsin or Uvalde? Because then you could sit around and
with a bow. You could walk around with a crossbow.
Because then you could just get 100 cops in a hallway hanging out while you have a gun, and they're not going to do anything. All right, we're being too unfair to the police.
And so we don't care about the police, we care about the sheriffs here. But regardless, okay, so my closing comments on this whole thing are, they're coming for our guns, man.
So I don't see that. But I will say something about in defense of the sheriff's theoretical argument, even though I believe it's not made in good faith. The fact that you have law enforcement type authority that is accountable to the voters and Constitution rather than just the whims of something else. I agree with that in principle. However, I only see it going one way. The ratchet effect is always to the right, never the left. And so I'm apolitical, and a lot of Democratic sheriffs are still right-wing assholes. And so I don't see the real progressive, for the people, poor the marijuana jaywalkers will get thrown in jail, get tased, get killed, and yet the AR-15 busting white guys shooting up a school will somehow get arrested without being killed. I don't understand it. If you shoot up a school, why is it so hard not to shoot them? Shoot the guy that's shooting the other kids. I don't get it.
That should be pretty straightforward.
I don't get it. And I'm not in favor of just blindly shooting any perpetrator. But if people that are getting arrested for jaywalking can be killed for resisting accidentally, how are so many white perps handled with kid gloves? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I don't know if this is really a racist topic.
No, I don't know if it's race. It could be class.
But I agree. Like, it seems like, maybe the proponents of the sheriffs or the people that are saying, like, we need to protect gun rights are right-leaning, but that's because, like, the majority of people who have guns are right-leaning, okay? So
maybe
that's just a circumstance.
I'm a progressive gun owner.
But, I mean, maybe it's just as simple as people are trying to protect the Constitution. Yeah. And that's something I think we can all get behind.
The Constitution's well protected, and it's a piece of paper. And I hear the chimes. Let's protect the people. That's what this podcast is about. Are you a person? Email the show packsandbolts@gmail.com. It is January 14th. It's Saturday, 2023. I wrote a check with 2022 a little while ago. I felt bad. Yeah, that's bad. Remember to keep packing those bolts. Till next time. See ya. Real goat.